Now from Atlanta News First Plus, this is Sports Tonight.
Welcome into Sports Tonight, a special draft edition. That's right, you heard it here. It is officially draft night. We have gotten here. Scott, we've talked about it a lot. I know this is your favorite time of the year.
Love the draft. Love the draft.
We have a great show for you, all draft-oriented. So if you didn't want to talk about the draft, this might be one of the ones you skip, but I think we have a lot of good content for you. We're going to start off with what the Falcons need, talk about the Falcons. They have the 8th overall pick. We'll hear from Terry Fontenot as he spoke earlier this week leading up to the draft about what they were looking for and what they might be looking to add as we get into the first round and so on. We're also going to have a little debate about receivers on the rise. We've talked a lot about the quarterbacks, but when you look at the receiver class, it's pretty deep. So who's the best? Who is maybe it's someone that you think is maybe flying under the radar? We're going to talk about the dogs that are in the draft. Obviously, everyone watching Brock Bowers, been reports, he visited with the Jets. But my favorite thing that we have today is what's your pick? So you see a lot of the same familiar faces on Sports Tonight. We will go through what everyone's pick is, not only for the Falcons' 8th overall pick, but we're also going to make a guess at where Brock Bowers will land as well. So if you want to see what everyone's picks are for the week, you're going to have to hang tight. But let's start with the Falcons, Scotty. When you look at the Falcons roster, just what do you think they need right off the jump?
Well, going into the offseason, I think obviously it was the quarterback position, right? That's what we looked at. We said, look, this team, once the offseason starts, once they found their head coach, the next thing needs to be they need to identify who's going to be their quarterback moving forward. Well, I would hope that $180 million solves that problem, right? Because they spent $180 million, $100 guaranteed, to bring in Kirk Cousins. So the next thing I looked at, where I said, okay, this is where this team really needs help, is getting to the quarterback. So for me, it's an outside pass rusher, or even if it's an interior guy, just somebody that can affect the quarterback position, because in these last couple of years for the Falcons, I think that's something that they've had problems with. They tried to address it with guys like Arnold Edikebi on the outside. He's been decent. They got Calais Campbell in free agency. That was, that move worked out pretty decent. But you haven't had that consistent outside edge rusher that can affect the quarterback week in and week out, get 10 to 15 sacks. So I think that's the next. I think that position is next up. I think that's what they need to address at the top of this draft. And there's a couple guys there who I think you can draft to help fill that need.
To go off of that, I totally agree with you in that stance, but I also think when you look at this team, they just need depth. They have some good pieces, especially on defense and offense, but it's the depth I'm more concerned about. So hopefully they can find some of that down the draft. So here's a peek at those Falcons 2024 draft picks. They have the number 8 overall pick. Then they have one in round 2 at 43, round 3 at 74. So that will be on Friday. They also have round 3, 79. That's from Jacksonville. And then 4, 5, and they have 2 and 6. Obviously have that one from Cleveland.
How you doing stealing from Cleveland?
No. Right? So those are the ones you can watch out for. But it's interesting because Terry Fontenot did speak earlier this week ahead of the draft. We did not hear from head coach Raheem Morris, Scott, but we heard a lot from Terry. I think some of the things that stuck out, and we'll run some of that sound for you guys so you can hear what he had to say. But the things that stuck out is, quarterbacks. Just because you backed up all the money for Kirk Cousins doesn't mean they're not going to look at quarterbacks. They talked to Michael Penix. They went to see Michael Penix.
They'll bring some more guys in. I think most teams at some point in every draft like to bring in a quarterback somewhere, whether it's, I don't think it's going to be round 1. It may not even be round 2, but I think at some point they will look to bring in someone behind Kirk Cousins to maybe sit for a couple years and be ready if either Kurt should go down or just a young guy to groom behind him, because Kurt's not getting any younger. Let's just be real.
Yeah, and they still have Taylor Heineke, too. He took a little bit of a pay cut, though, to stay. Along with that, I think he did discuss about a couple of other topics. Let's head to the sound so you guys can hear from Terry Fontenot, the man himself.
And it starts with our owner, Arthur Blank, all the unwavering support that he gives us, literally any resource that we need to be successful, he provides us with. So couldn't be more thankful for Arthur. Kyle Smith, my right-hand man in regards to all player acquisition. Kyle's literally obsessed with the process. That's why I love him so much. And so he's been outstanding, like he's always been here. And you get into the player personnel department, the college scouting department. This is their baby all year. the late nights, the rental cars, all the travel that they do, the time away from their families, and they're really the backbone of this process and all the work that they put into it. Very appreciative of them. We're very detailed and organized because of the work that they put into it. The pro personnel department, with not only the players that we're able to sign in free agency, but even players that you sign during the season, off the street, the players that we took off practice squads, and now to get to see the way they're developing. We're excited about our team right now. We have a lot of flexibility going into the draft because of all the work that they put into it, so very appreciative of them. The coaching staff, obviously from Raheem on down throughout all the coaches, all the work that they put into it. We rely on our coaches a lot in this process. We lean on them a lot, and in terms of giving us their vision for the players, what we have here, what we're looking for, and then in all the evaluations. It's been an excellent process. We have a very smart, passionate, forward-thinking group, and so it's been really fun going through that work with them, and then getting to football tech and analytics with Steph and Danny and their staffs, the training room, the equipment room, player engagement. So much work goes into this, the medical staff. Just very appreciative really of the entire building. You know, we get out of the season, we got the coaching search, then you got free agency, then you got the draft, and it really hasn't stopped. And really most importantly, the families. My wife's the one that brought those cookies, and she comes up here to bring cookies just to see me for a second, because it truly is like our families make a lot of sacrifices for us to be able to do what we do. So very appreciative of all our families and all the work that's gone into it. And again, we're very excited as we get prepared to go into Thursday. Any questions?
Tell Miss Ryan thank you for the cookie.
I will let her know, Led. I'll tell her Led said thank you.
That's for everybody.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just the news that the tampering review will not be concluded. Does that help you all plan for the draft?
Well, look, the league has been very communicative with us, and throughout the whole process, really appreciate them, and we've obviously cooperated, provided all the information, and again, not really any update from our end in regards to that. We'll just continue to cooperate and control what you can control. We'll get ready for this draft, and so we're excited moving forward.
Do you feel like y'all acted above board in all of this?
Again, not something we can talk about as long as it's under review. I know you guys respect that, but we've been cooperative with the league, and the way they've communicated with us, we appreciate the process they've gone through. So, but not something, Josh, we can talk about right now.
How are you all, seeing things? Arthur Blank said the pre-draft meeting was done yesterday, but just how's everything stacked for that first round pick for you all?
When did you talk to Arthur?
Yesterday. For Matt.
Oh, that's right. For Matt said I didn't. I was just thinking. You kind of said it like you just talked to him, like it's So yes, so we did. We had a meeting with Arthur right before that, and I'll say this, Led. We've obviously finished up our meetings, and we finished up all of our. We've had the medical meetings. We finished up with the scouts. Sent the scouts home at the end of last week. We still have another security meeting coming up, and so there's still boxes to check. We feel great about where we are, but it really goes down to the wire, and the hay's not in the barn until we turn that card in. So we feel great about where we are, but we're still working through it.
With all the anticipated movement about the quarterbacks, does this seem like this is a year where you're fielding more phone calls about your pick at 8 and what may happen? Or are you making more, taking more, given the layout of this year's draft?
Yeah, it is unique because when you can have possibly that many quarterbacks going right at the top, then it's going to push down some really good skill players. And so depending on, there could be a lot of action at some different spots around our pick. So right now those calls are just exploratory. So we have the conversations, but you really don't get into what the value would be. It's just a lot of preliminary calls because, to your point, they won't happen until it's really on the clock, right? Whenever you see what players are there. And then when it gets close to your pick, you start getting the calls that say, hey, if our player's there, then this is what we would do. And you start having those real conversations of what it would take. And what we have to do is know at each pick what's going to be the value to go down. So this is what it would take for us to move from this pick down 3 spots or 4 spots or 10 spots, whatever it is. We would take this value, and these are the players we would get. And you're just weighing the value of this player and this pick compared to this player at 8, or again, if you're going up a tick to get another player, you're just kind of weighing out those values. But to answer your question, until you're really on the clock, that's when it becomes real.
Is it fair to say that it'd be favorable for 4 quarterbacks to go within the first 4 or 5 picks?
You just never know, man. It's again the way it's a strong. Just the fact that we're talking about possibly 4 quarterbacks going before that point, it shows how strong that quarterback class is, and there's some really good skill position players that are going to be at certain points that could go 1, 2, 3 in other drafts. So to your point, having such a strong quarterback class does help the entire draft.
Yeah, I'm interested how you kind of weed out those phone calls, like especially when you're on the clock. Like, how do you determine whether or not, okay, this team is a little serious, or I'm being willing to negotiate with this team, all the while somebody else may be calling during that moment trying to move up?
Yeah, it's all the work that good question that goes at this point, right? So we're having all those calls at this point, and so we really know the teams that have some real interest, and sometimes there's surprises on the clock, but from this time up until the draft, we're having not just myself, but Kyle Smith and other people, we're having those calls and having all that communication, so you know the teams, you can expect the teams, and then if you see a certain player getting to a certain point, then you know, okay, there are going to be more teams that call. So we kind of sort through that throughout the process. But if teams are calling you around your pick, it's pretty serious.
You mentioned enjoying seeing these guys on the grass for a couple. I know it's just been a couple of days.
Yeah.
But putting those 2 days in the mix in the last month, what has Kirk Cousins' impact been so far that you've seen?
It's been great. It's been great, Josh. He really hit the ground running, and we knew the excitement about Kirk Cousins is he's a multiplier on and off the field, and we know that. And so when he gets in the building and in the training room, and really everything's over there right now, right? Everything's together, and it's really cool. But the training room, in the weight room, on the field activities, everything he's done in the meeting room, he truly is the work that he does. He sits right in the front of Raheem's meeting, notes everything, and he's like a nerd up there. Just he's obsessed with it, and so that's been great. And we have a lot of hard workers on this team. There's a lot of guys that are here right now, and they're rolling. And we know it's the off season, and we know they have to separate a little bit from the season and take a little break and decompress and all that stuff. But these guys are in here rolling, from the meeting rooms to the work that they're doing out there with Griff and his staff, the new player performance group. But it's been outstanding from not only Kirk, but that's what we love. The most exciting thing about him is we know his makeup and his mentality, and we know that fits what we're about in this culture. We've been working hard to build. So you definitely feel the impact.
Was any part of your desire to get a quarterback in free agency versus waiting for the draft to stay out of what is a very fluid situation right now for teams that need a quarterback? If you still needed one, you would be in the middle of some at 8. Your fate would be in other people's hands. How much of the free agency decision was we want to not let that happen?
Yeah, Josh, you just said it. When you're at 8, it's different if we're at 1 or 2 or right, but you're at 8. So there's too many variables in front of you, so you can't guarantee anything. You just don't know. I mean, if quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4, it's not going to surprise any of us, right? And so being at that point and not knowing that, it's different if you're more in the top 5 or higher regarding your pick. But there's a known commodity that we had an opportunity to sign, and it doesn't keep you away from signing quarterback. Look, whether it's in the 1st round, the 7th round, after the draft, a trade, it doesn't take you away from doing more at that quarterback position, right? But yes, having that opportunity to sign a known commodity with the right makeup and we really covet here, then because who knows what's going to be there in the draft, to answer your question.
At least one hands-on opinion, done a good job at doing best player available in the draft. If the best player available that comes at 8 is another pass catcher, is that something that you would consider trying to trade out or look at? Or would the optics of taking a pass catcher 3 straight years in a row, what would you say to the fan base who might lose their minds to that?
Do you think they would? Would that not be good? Right, and so when we talk about best player available, it's really it's best player available for us, right? Because I think sometimes when people hear best player available, they're looking at some of the experts list, right? And what you have 32 different draft boards. You know, they're probably a little more similar in the top 10 or in the top, you know, but they can get very different as you go through the draft, but you truly have 32 different draft boards. When you talk about best player available, really you're talking about best player available for us, and the key is not reaching for needs. So in most cases, you're going to have – you got the different categories, right? You have the impact players, you have the elite players, you have the solid starters, you have the functional starters, you have the role players, the developmental, you have all these categories. So in most cases, you're going to have more than one position in that category. So now you can look at, okay, these are the players we have in this category, so let's go with the position need or the more premier position, call it. You know, you can choose. What you don't want to do is if you have a couple players in this category and you have more of a need and it's down this, and so as opposed to taking an impact player, you're taking a functional starter, or, you know, that's the key with that. Somebody said the other day, I think it was DeJuan Jones who spent time in Baltimore. He said today's surplus is tomorrow's necessity, right? Tomorrow can be 2 years from now, right? We're getting these drafted players for 4 to 5 years. Tomorrow can be August in this league, right? So we always have to look at, and again, you hear stories about players at different points that you didn't take because you had a better need. So I'm saying all this to say is that we always want to bring in impact players and continue to build a team. But where need does come into place is when you have several players in the category, which in most cases you do. Yeah, Allison, it's never set, right? You have players that you're really excited about throughout the entire process, right? Where it's during the season, and then you keep getting more and more information, right? So you go through the season, and that's what's cool about being in constant communication with the college scouts, and because you got guys that you're excited about, and you do have this moving board, right? And then you get more information as you go through the all-star games. You start getting around the players more. You get the confirmed measurables, which is a big deal, right? And you get all that information, and you continue to get it, and things continue to pivot. You get to spend time with the players, all the exposures, as much weight as we put on character and makeup. That's the most important thing that we can do. So getting around these players is very important, right? And it's not just about being a good human being. We also want players that love this game and are passionate about everything they do. And so spending more and more time with them, spending time with their coaches, and getting – so then you again, combine, the 30 visits, all the things, all the different categories. It continues to, even now, we're continuing to gather information. So you have your favorites. Things continue to shift as you get more and more information. And then you have a good feeling about, okay, these are the players that we're really talking about. But then, Allison, you get in the draft, and we got those variables in front of us, right? We got 7 variables in front of us, and next year we're going to have a lot more variables in front of us, right? So so you never really know who you know the players you covet and the players you like. You really just have to really stack that thing up. And like right now we have to stack up 8 players, and okay, this is how we feel. And then you continue to go down so we can have those conversations, to your point, when you get those opportunities to go down. So you really can never, unless you're Chicago, you can't say for sure who that player is going to be.
All right, so we will see what the Falcons do. Some other things to pay attention to, what storylines. There's a lot of, new coaches with some first-round picks. So, you think about Jim Harbaugh.
Including one in town, right?
Patriots, right here with Raheem. Yeah. We're going to see what they do. Who needs a receiver? That's our next topic we're going to get into. Quarterbacks for grabs. Do you think there's going to be an early trend for quarterbacks? I think
there always is, of course.
Right.
There's always an early rush on quarterbacks, because the simple answer is, in the NFL, if you don't have a quarterback, then you have to go and get one, because if you don't have one, you'll soon be without a job.
And we'll see who ends up trading up. But, Scott, let's dive into these receivers right now.
Some good ones.
There are some good ones. And I think, for me, I like Malik Neighbors more than Marvin Harrison. I know you're an Ohio guy, so I don't think you're going to like that much. I just think he's a little injury prone. I do think he's really good. I do think he's a top-tier receiver. But I think what we saw from Malik Neighbors, along with guy thrown to him like Jaden Daniels was
That helps.
pretty special.
Yeah.
So I'm more of a Malik Neighbors gal than a Marvin Harrison, but
I get it.
I'll hear your plea a little bit maybe.
Well, I think when you think about Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, he's one of the best prospects to come into the NFL from a wide receiver standpoint in a long time, right? I mean, he has the bloodlines of his dad. He's been trained from day one. He's totally been trained to be an NFL wide receiver from day one. And so he has every tool imaginable. I heard people question maybe his breakaway speed or whatever, but you never saw anybody catch him from behind, right? I mean, so that's why he's called Maserati Marv. So, yeah, I mean, look, let's just be real. You can't go wrong. Right? I mean, there's whether you like Malik Neighbors, I personally prefer Marvin Harrison Jr. I've obviously had an up close seat, but I've also watched a lot of Malik Neighbors too. So I think with either one of those two, you can't go wrong. And then Roma Zunde from did I say his name right?
So that we don't know how to say his name, but Adunze.
Adunze. Yeah, Rome.
Rome from Washington. That's what we're going to call him. I think he's underrated. I think he's a really underrated. I mean, for being one of the top receivers, you could make an argument probably that he's up there with Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors.
And he kind of puts me in the mindset of a guy who's been a very steady receiver in the NFL for a lot of years. Keenan Allen with the Chargers. I mean, he's one of their all-time leading receivers with the Chargers. He kind of puts me in that mindset mode, right? I mean, just of a guy who's real steady. He's going to be drafted by somebody. He's going to put up a lot of numbers. He's going to be a really good receiver for a long time. So you cannot go wrong. This is the draft. If you really desire a pass catcher or a guy to help out your quarterback in the top 10 or 15, and that's where you're picking, you have a really good opportunity here to get three very gifted wide receivers.
Yeah, okay, so one of the wide receivers people are going to be watching for is where Ladd McConkey actually ends up falling.
It's another good one.
He is someone who, after the Senior Bowl and his combine, his stock just continues to climb and climb.
Yeah.
True football guy, high IQ. Everyone loves him. He just looks like one of those workhorse guys. I don't think he's a first-rounder, Scott.
Probably not.
I don't. I think that's a lot of hype people are buying into. I think he does fall to the second, maybe even the third. But I do think he's a receiver people are going to be eyeing a little bit. That might be, under the radar compared to some of the guys we just talked about.
Yeah, I think when you think about the skill set from Ladd McConkey, right? I mean, he just looks like one of those slot guys in the NFL on the next level who's gonna, I think he's one of those guys that needs to be with the right fit. Right? And so I think when you think about those kind of receivers, those are normally second round guys who need to get in the right situation, right fit, the right kind of offense with a good enough quarterback that's able to utilize their skills. And look, he has a lot of good attributes too. He's not just, when you see the attributes and everything like that, the first thing you want to say is a good slot receiver. But no, he can make plays downfield. I mean, he's a guy who maybe even, I don't know if I want to put this name with him, but think about Cooper Kupp with the Rams. I mean, just how Matt Stafford was able to take advantage of him and use him even downfield. He's had a great career in the NFL. So maybe when you think about Ladd McConkey, maybe that's one guy to keep in mind is Cooper Kupp and what he's done for the Rams.
Yeah, so here's a look at those Georgia players that are in this draft. Brock Bowers will obviously be in the first round. We'll see where he lands. We're going to talk about that shortly. Amarius Mims, another projected first rounder, maybe late in the first round. We'll see. We talked about Ladd. Javon Bullard, I think, is a second rounder. I'd be surprised if he fell to the third. After that, Kamari Lassiter, Tyke Smith, and Cedric Van Pran are all players we will be keeping our eyes on for sure.
Being at the pro day for UGA, the Steelers seems to have a pretty close interest in Amarius Mims. So we'll see. I saw they were really kind of talking to him a lot. So, and look, they drafted a Steelers offensive lineman in the first round. I mean, a UGA offensive lineman in the first round last year. So don't be surprised.
All right, so let's get into arguably my favorite part of what is going to be this show. What's your pick? We're going to have we're going to go have Emily's out in Flowery Branch, so we're going to talk about Emily's picks, what she decided. We'll get my opinion, your opinion, Lee. We're going to throw Ellie. We're all going to rotate, so get ready for the chaos. Let's start with what Emily picked. She says that the Falcons are going to take, I'm not even going to butcher this name.
Oh, so that's the offensive lineman for Liatu Latu.
There you go.
Liatu Latu.
Listen, you're better with it.
The pass rusher from UCLA.
Yes, he's from UCLA with the 8th pick. She also think it's going to be the Giants that Brock Bowers goes to at 6.
Poor guy. He has to go play with Daniel Jones now.
So she's not here to defend it, but we'll see who ends up.
Look, I
getting
don't
it,
have any
right?
problems with Brock going to the Giants. I have a problem with going to go play with Daniel Jones as your quarterback.
I don't want him. No, someone else needs to go get him, and that's what I'm predicting. So my predictions, I think the Falcons trade down from 8, not far. I think they go somewhere like 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that vicinity. Let someone come up, get a quarterback that may need one, and then I think they'll actually end up drafting a receiver. I just think they're going to go full throttle on offense. And I think that's crazy, but that's what draft predictions are for.
Not enough balls to go around already.
I think Brock Bowers goes to the Jets. I know there was that big report that he was visiting the Jets, but I'm just holding out hope that Aaron Rodgers gets to throw bombs to Brock Bowers because I think Aaron Rodgers would love Brock Bowers.
For about a year, then he's going to be gone, right?
Yeah,
like
and
40.
then they'll have to figure out a quarterback situation.
Right.
Or maybe the Chiefs. I wouldn't mind seeing Brock Bowers go to the Chiefs.
Man, that would be crazy.
All right, Scott, talk to me about your picks.
So I like, once again, when we started the show, I said I believe that there's 2 things you have to do in the NFL. You have to be able to have a quarterback, and you have to have guys that can affect the quarterback. So I got the Falcons taking edge rusher Dallas Turner from the University of Alabama. He was a guy, he had 10 sacks this past year. He could affect the quarterback really well. I think he's also a big reason why those defensive backs for Alabama have been so, teams like a lot of those defensive backs. But I think when you're a edge rusher and you can get to the quarterback, it makes everything on the back end look so much better because those guys don't have to cover as long. So when I look at the Falcons team and what they have to, and what I think what they have to brush up on, they need someone that can consistently get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I like this pick. I think this is, I don't want to call you basic, but I
That's
do
all right.
think this is the safe, basic pick.
Nice, safe, basic pick, yeah.
I like the safe, basic pick, Scott. Can we call Lee Smith to the table?
Lee!
Lee?
You got it.
Lee? Before we go to your pick, I'm going to let you, any thoughts on this year's draft
I hope
that you want to get in there?
I hope someone makes a terrible pick and goes up way too far to get J.J. McCarthy. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Someone will go up way too far and get J.J. McCarthy.
Who's getting J.J. McCarthy? The Bears? Wait your turn, Ellie. Wait your turn.
I think it might be. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe the Vikings. I don't know.
Ooh, okay, all right.
I don't know.
Lee, talk to us about your picks.
All right, so I went with Scott too. I chose Dallas Turner out of Alabama. They need some pass rush. I just thought it was either that or a cornerback. So it was either that or maybe Terry and Arnold out of Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that that's as much of a need as getting a pass rush because they have not had a pass rush. And I mean, this last year was it for the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years. And let's see, the last time they had a really good pass rusher was Vic Beasley, who actually led the NFL in sacks in 2016 when the Falcons won the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I'm going to say that, and I'm also going to say that I'm going to say Brock goes to the Jets.
You're with me with get Aaron Rodgers to throw bombs to Brock Bowers.
I mean, he's already got Garrett Wilson and who else? There's somebody else.
Who's that?
Garrett Wilson
Who are we
and one other
forgetting?
person. At the Jets are currently for receivers. Yeah, I thought there was somebody else.
There is
but
someone
they
else.
definitely do
But we're
not
running out
have.
of time.
Yeah, tight end.
So, Ellie,
Yeah.
come on in. I want to give you enough time to rant. Before we get into your picks, I want to know thoughts on the overall draft. You have under 2 minutes to get this, so.
As a Bears fan, I'm excited for Caleb Williams. I'm excited for what they do at number 9. Even more excited because frankly, we knew Caleb Williams was happening for months on end. So, yeah, this is one of the more exciting drafts in a long time as a Bears fan.
So talk to us about your picks here.
So, I'm the contrarian a little bit. I think the Falcons go back-to-back Texas Longhorns round 1.
I love
Byron
that.
Byron Murphy II, I think, is actually a bit of a safer pick than Dallas Turner.
Okay.
Just because Dallas Turner has had his problems with penalties and late hits and those sorts of things, and Byron Murphy hasn't.
Okay.
And for Brock Bowers, I think I'm going to call my shot.
Okay.
At a minimum, the Vikings trade 11-23 and a 2025 second rounder for the number 5 pick. They take J.J. McCarthy. Chargers trade back to 11 and take Brock Bowers.
Okay, I actually like that. I think that's a really good pick. At first, I was like, where are you going with this? But now I really agree with that. All right, Ellie, thank you. Bringing in the hot take.
I'm back.
All righty. Well, that is the picks. The draft gets started shortly. You're going to want to tune in because it's going to be, there's always chaos that happens in the first round. It's always a
love it.
fun night. But thank you for joining us on this edition of Sports Tonight. Make sure you join us for the rest of the week. We'll recap on Friday. Have a good night.